Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the FY2024 Notice of Funding Opportunity hosted by NOAA's Weather Program Office. I am Tamara Battle, the Policy and Partnerships Lead for WPO, and we would like to take a little bit of time this afternoon to go through our two competitions for this year's Notice of Funding Opportunity that opened on August 25th. So next slide, please. So first, a few logistics. This session is being recorded by the NOAA Central Library and will be available at the NOAA Central Library's YouTube channel. So all audience members will be muted during the time of the webinar, but we will have a Q&A session afterwards for questions. If you are having any connection issues with GoToWebinar, please log off and then log back on. And as a reminder, your individual access information is included in your registration confirmation email. Again, questions will be accepted in the questions chat box and read aloud at the end of the presentation. Should you have follow-up questions for WPO, please use the contact information that will be provided at the end of the webinar. You may also download today's slides from the handouts menu that's located in your GoToWebinar control panel. Also, closed captioning is available during, not during the webinar, but will be available through the webinar's YouTube channel when it is posted to the library's YouTube channel. So you will have closed captioning available, not during the webinar itself, but through the NOAA Central Library YouTube channel. Next slide, please. So at this time, I'd like to introduce WPO's director, Dr. Dorothy Koch, for some opening remarks, as well as to touch on our vision and mission. Dorothy?
Great, thank you very much, Tamara. So I want to welcome all of you to our second annual NOAA Weather Program Office Funding Opportunity webinar, and really appreciate you joining us for this informational briefing. The WPO Weather Program Office, we refer to ourselves as WPO. The team has done a really excellent job of pulling together some really useful information that hopefully you will find helpful as you consider and hopefully apply for our fiscal year 24, we call it FY24 funding opportunity. And I thought it might be helpful to provide a little bit of context for what you're going to hear in this briefing with respect to the broader picture of what we do in WPO. The vision and mission are on this slide, so they're pretty simple and straightforward. We're really, providing innovative science that powers a weather-ready nation, and that really comes from you all. So within the Weather Program Office, we fund research that's across a whole broad spectrum of weather research. And I think Tamara is going to show a little bit more of this in a slide in a minute. But everything from making weather observations to developing forecast models to developing forecast products to testing those in a test bed environment, which you'll hear more about in a little bit, to using social science to analyze whether our research is effective or not. We fund that whole broad spectrum. And most of our funding in WPO goes outside of NOAA, so about 80% goes out to grants such as the ones that we're going to talk about here today. So this is really, really important to us. This funding opportunity in FY24 is somewhat modest, I think, compared with what we've had in the past. So I wanted to kind of give you that context as well, and in the future. So in FY23, this past year, we had a competition that we called Innovations in Community Modeling, and 3 of our programs teamed up together to fund innovative approaches particularly to community modeling. There was also a vortex competition, an observations competition, a social science competition, and from all of that, we anticipate announcing very soon 37 awards that are funded across 77 institutions. So stay tuned. Within the next week or two, I believe we will be announcing those projects. So it's very exciting. Given all that, this year in FY24, the NOFO's funding opportunity is relatively modest, but is focusing on two very important and very timely topics. So one of those is our climate testbed. And we've had a climate testbed competition in the past. We have been encouraged through the appropriations language this year to make our climate testbed innovative. And so part of that, I think, involves working with NOAA's Unified Forecast System, seasonal forecast system, which is being developed by our modeling programs and activities at NOAA. But working with that model in particular in a testbed environment, as well as other innovative ideas, I think will be the kinds of projects we'll be looking for. Again, you'll hear more about that from the program managers. And so in addition to climate, there's also a fire weather competition. And fire weather is relatively new in the Weather Program Office as a funding opportunity. But we started just 2 years ago, and last year as well, so FY22 and FY23, we've had some funding in fire weather, sent out for fire weather projects. Last year, the focus was on somewhat longer timescale global systems, and this year it's more on the shorter timescale high resolution system. So again, you'll hear more about that from the program manager. And so that's all we have this year. Next year, we anticipate in FY25, that is, we anticipate another larger funding opportunity. So if you don't see your research in these two opportunities this year, stay tuned, and next year I think there's going to be a more holistic set of programs to apply to. The other thing I wanted to say is we're really very, very serious in WPO about trying to make the process of applying for grants in our office easier and more accessible, and to really diversify and expand our pool of applicants. We're very interested in your feedback. Last year after our competition, we sent out a survey to get feedback, and we're taking that feedback very, very seriously, and we keep striving to improve, and that's part of the reason that we're having this webinar today. So thank you again for attending and tuning in, and I will turn it back over to Tamara to take the presentation from here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dorothy. And so, as Dorothy touched on, we really focus in WPO on funding research to improve forecasts. And so here to the right, you can see a list of WPO's portfolio, which includes atmospheric composition and fire weather, the management of several test beds, including a new fire weather test bed, which is coming soon, observations in social science, JTTI for technology transfer initiatives, subseasonal to seasonal research, EPIC, the Earth Prediction Intervention Center, supplemental appropriations, which we help to manage with other line offices across NOAA when supplemental appropriations come in, management of phased array radar, as well as Vortex USA. And again, our aim is to integrate world-class weather research into operational forecasts for the public and support new weather applications. Next slide, please. And so we really work to drive innovative research across the weather enterprise. And we look at WPO as kind of sitting in the center and serving maybe as a liaison between industry, academia, and other federal agencies, as well as state and local and agencies and tribal communities, the National Weather Service, NOAA Research, and weather research and development in general. And so at the intersection of this weather enterprise, we work to facilitate really a strong and growing weather research network, not only throughout NOAA, but while fostering collaborations with other federal and non-federal agencies, institutions, academia, as well as the private sector. Next slide, please. And so as Dorothy touched on, we look at weather research, which really spans the forecast value chain, from observations through modeling, forecast applications, products, and communication. And as you can see with that diagram on the right, these all feed into each other, so it's not a linear process, but this is a process or a value chain that feeds one into the other and loops through. So we are constantly looking at how to improve weather forecasts throughout the entire forecast value chain. Next slide, please. And so our scientific priorities really depend on availability of funding. So the selection of scientific priorities is oftentimes dependent upon available funds and congressional appropriations for WPO. We really work to align with a lot of policies and strategies within the office, as well as across NOAA, such as our strategic plan, Also, of course, the Weather Research and Forecasting Innovation Act of 2017, as well as its reauthorization in 2019. Many of NOAA's OAR's and NWS's strategic plans, as well as the Priorities for Weather Research report that was generated by the Science Advisory Board. Also, we solicit input from key partners, from stakeholders and scientific community members, and we also include Weather Service operational centers, emergency managers, public officials, industry, and academia, and again, helping to set our scientific priorities. Next slide, please. And so as Dorothy mentioned, while modest, this is still a very important funding opportunity that we're offering to the public, internal as well as external. So we're accepting proposals through November 16th, 2023, so approximately 2 months from now, as part of 2 grant competitions valued in total at approximately $2 million per year. And so those 2 competitions are the Climate Testbed, which is managed by the competition manager, Jordan Dale, and the Fire Weather competition, which is being managed by Lingyan Zing. So the announcement contains 2 competitions. The competitions have the same rules, regulations, and deadlines, but each competition has unique science priorities and program managers for each. And so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jordan Dale, who will speak a little bit about the priorities for the Climate Testbed and what it is that we're looking for. Jordan?
Thank you, Tamara. WPO's Testbeds program will be leading the Climate Testbed competition this year, which aims to support new research to advance NOAA's operational subseasonal to seasonal prediction capabilities via NOAA's Climate Testbed. For this competition, we ask that proposals demonstrate how your project will address one or more of the following scientific priorities, and I want to highlight these are detailed in the NOFO, but just to summarize, these will include for this year improving data assimilation systems that support short-range climate monitoring and prediction, accelerating the seasonal forecast system, which is the S2S portion of NOAA's unified forecast system, and improving methods used to make S2S outlooks, including model post-processing via innovative statistical techniques and applications of existing statistical techniques. I also want to mention that there is a supplementary information sheet that you can access through grants.gov. And also you can access that through WPO's website. Next slide. All right, so why do we care about this? Ultimately, the goal of this competition is to fund projects that can support NOAA's climate testbeds. The CTB's mission is to accelerate the transition of scientific advances from the climate research community to improved NOAA climate forecast products and services. These climate forecast products and services include temperature and precipitation outlooks at subseasonal to seasonal timescales, and I have a few examples on the slide here. And these ultimately help inform drought outlooks and many other products that are critical for informing society to prepare for and respond to climate variations and their impacts. Next slide. And now I'll turn it over to Lingyan, who will present more information about the fire weather competition.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lingyan, the program manager for the FY2024 fire weather competition. The fire weather forecast system projects will develop components related to our next generation coupled wildfire weather unified forecast system, UFS, that leads to improved forecast of fire behavior and smoke. On the right-hand side, the image show is the example of the vertical integrated smoke forecast obtained from H3R smoke model. It shows where wildfire smoke will travel across the United States. So this year, the proposal we're seeking for should address one or more of the following priorities that include evolution of an active fire, including interactions between terrestrial fire and the atmospheric conditions and the composition, smoke transport, evolution and interaction with meteorology, data assimilation of atmospheric and terrestrial conditions, new or improved physics parameterization, and also fire weather forecast system testing, verification, and predictability. So you can look at the full details of those priorities on their grants.gov, and so that we only provide the short version of those priorities. Next, please. Why the fire weather forecast modeling is important? The increase in frequency of drought and hot, dry, windy conditions over the last several decades has led to a marked increase in number of the acres burned by hazardous wildfires. Those cost the nation billions of dollars a year when accounting for the local cost of damage to buildings, communities, and the downstream impacts on human health associated with smoke and poor air quality. Here is some of the examples recently happened that shows the wildfire. So for example, the wildfire in Maui, Hawaii, and how the Canadian, like this is a Canadian wildfire, impact the air quality across the northeast coast of the United States. So the fire weather program is to improve fire weather forecast information and the delivery. WPO, our office, through collaboration with partners, aims to develop and improve impact-based decision support tools, products, and models to provide timely and accurate guidance to safeguard lives and property and manage downstream air quality impacts. That's our fire weather computation. Next, please.
Thanks, Lingyan. So just to kind of tie the two competitions together here, both the climate testbed and the fire weather competitions will have a focus on advancing NOAA's unified forecast system, which we refer to as the UFS. The UFS is a community-based coupled Earth modeling system designed to support the weather enterprise while also being the source system for NOAA's operations. The UFS spans a variety of weather and climate hazards across timescales relevant to each hazard. For this year, the climate testbed competition will be focused on advancing the UFS at sub-seasonal to seasonal timescales, as indicated on the right, while the fire weather competition will focus on advancing the UFS's fire weather prediction capabilities at short-range timescales, which is also indicated on the right-hand side. Next slide.
Thank you, Jordan and Lingyan, for those breakdowns of what we're looking for the climate testbed and fire weather competitions. And so now we come to the part of deciding, is this NOFO opportunity right for me or right for you? So do you have a proposal that is appropriate for one of these competitions with research and development activities that are innovative and ambitious? Is your department or organization supportive of this project idea? Are your projected outcomes aligned with operational, commercial, or other enterprise needs? Will you follow through with required reporting and evaluation requirements? Are you equipped to execute funding completely and in a timely manner? Or is another competition a better fit? So as Dorothy mentioned, this is a modest year with only 2 competitions. Last year, there were 4 competitions. We anticipate having others in the future. So you really want to focus on a few of these questions to ask if this is the correct opportunity for you to apply to. Next slide. If you do decide that, or if you need to find more information, we have plenty of information about the FY2024 NOFO competition available on our website at wpo.noaa.gov. On the website, you can find information about the funding process, which includes general information about the NOFO, as well as some self-directed presentations on research priorities in the grants process, application process, award process and eligibility requirements, and partnerships and other funding opportunities. We also have information on how to apply, which includes instructions and timelines for applications, including an application checklist, frequently asked questions that we've received in the past that might be helpful for applying for this year's competition, as well as competition information sheets, which you can again find on our website, but also find on grants.gov. We also have a page that allows you to explore FY22 funded projects. So past competition information, as well as links to previous NOFO competitions and highlights of past year's funded projects. Next slide, please. So if you go to the website, Weather Program Office, and you look for the tab Funding Opportunities, you'll see a drop-down menu, which includes about the funding process, as well as how to apply. If you click on how to apply, which Melissa is doing live, again, we have a couple of presentations that lead you through a short synopsis of the application and award process, followed by the application checklist. And you really want to make sure that you adhere to the entire checklist to make sure that you submit a complete proposal. Should you have any questions, you're also welcome to reach out to us at the information that we'll provide at the end of the webinar. So when is the application due? So the NOFO was published on www.grants.gov on August 25th, 2023. Letters of intent, while not required, are recommended and are due September 19th, 2023 by 5:00 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You submit those forms or email approximately 1 month after the NOFO publication, and this helps WPO gauge the number of applications or applicants and provide initial feedback to potential applicants on whether or not your research appears viable. LOIs should contain a list of principal investigators, proposed work plan, and estimated budget. And again, while they are not required, they are highly recommended. If you do submit a letter of intent, you should expect a response by approximately October 19th, 2023. Through that feedback, we'll provide PIs with a recommendation to proceed or not proceed with a full proposal. And the response occurs approximately 1 month after the LOI submission deadline of September 19th, 5:00 p.m. The proposal application deadline is November 16th, 2023, 5:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a final hard deadline to submit your full proposal via grants.gov and will not be adjusted. Again, that deadline is November 16th, 2023, 5:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the anticipated date of award decisions should be spring of next year at approximately May of 2024. Next slide, please. So finally, who should you contact if you need additional information or have questions? So the official NOFO announcement, again, is available at www.grants.gov, as well as supplementary information sheets for each competition. If you would like to reach out to WPO directly, you may use our email address specifically for NOFO competitions at oar.wpo.nofo.competition@noaa.gov, oar.wpo.noaa.competition@noaa.gov. Our NOFO managers are Felicia, Guarriello, and Alison, Agather, who are constantly monitoring that particular email address for any questions that we receive. And we will also post questions, frequently asked questions, to our website for the general public. So at this time, we would like to conclude this portion of the webinar and open it to any Q&A that you may have at this time. I would also like to welcome Jordan and Lingyan to come back on camera. We also do have Dorothy, as well as John Tenhove, who is our Deputy Director of WPO, available to answer questions.
All right, we have one question that has been entered, and I invite any of the other attendees to submit their questions either in the chat or in the question function in GoToWebinar. But this first question, although it asks specifically for the climate testbed competition, I'm going to actually just ask it because I know it'll be the same for both of the competitions. And it says, can you clarify the funding limitations for contractors? I've noted the NOFO says that contractors have similar rules to federal staff. Does this mean we cannot request salary funding for contractors? Can we request overhead?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't want to give you a specific answer that might be incorrect. So I would say I would, if we have your information, let me follow up with you on that one. Just to make sure that I'm giving you the right information. I can go back to the NOFO and specifically cite the language, but I'm happy to answer that question. Or if Dorothy, I don't know if you have another response to that, but I would probably best that we research that a little bit further before getting back to you.
I can actually answer that a little bit if you'd like me to.
Sure.
Okay, so federal contractor salary costs are ineligible expenses to be covered by awards from this NOFO. As for what can be requested in terms of overhead, I'd like to direct you to our frequently asked questions on our NOFO webpage, which can be found in funding opportunities, how to apply. There is actually an answer in there as a question that had been asked previously. And I'd also like to direct you to our general information sheet, which can also be found on that same page and also under the related documents tab on the NOFO announcement. There are further details there. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact the competition's email account and we will give you more details if you need more.
Thanks, Felicia.
The next question I see is not competition specific, so maybe I'll have both Jordan and Lingyan specify for the competitions. But the question is, what RL does this competition require? So Jordan and Lingyan, please answer that.
Sure, I'll start off with the climate testbed competition. The readiness levels, similar to other testbeds that we're targeting here, fall mostly in the RL 5 to 7 space. So that's at the early stages of demonstration through the ending stages of demonstration of new research. For the fire weather testbed, I'll just go ahead and speak to that, but Lingyan, feel free to chime in. We're targeting for that competition a little lower in the RL 2 to 6 span. Specifically 3 to 5 is the kind of closer target there, but anything starting from 2 to 3 up to 5 to 6.
Thank you, Jordan. Our next question says, will the $2 million be split evenly between climate and fire weather? And are there any budget guidelines regarding the maximum and minimum that will be funded per project?
I can speak to that as well. So the official budget information is in the NOFO announcement. I encourage everyone to look to that for the official guidance. But for the climate testbed, the maximum funding limit per project per year is $300,000. For fire weather, the maximum funding limit per project per year is $350,000. And for both climate testbed and fire weather competitions, we anticipate funding approximately $1 million per award per year, or excuse me, per project per year. So both competitions, we have approximately $2 million in total to fund projects. For the climate testbed competition, the expected number of funded projects we anticipate awarding are 1 to 2. And for fire weather, that expected number of funded projects that we will award are 2 to 3 projects. And again, this is all in the official NOFO announcement, so please refer to that for the official answer there.
Thank you, Jordan. Our next question reads, thanks for the information. I'm considering a proposal on the improvement of physics parameterization for fire weather applications. What model should I be focusing on in terms of improvement? Is it the UFS?
I think so.
I'll speak to that as well. Lingyan's correct. Yes, we are looking for projects to address components of the UFS. So please refer to more information about the UFS. And if you have any specific questions about particular components of the UFS that you should focus on, I encourage you to please reach out to any of us at WPO. So that can either be through the official competitions email address that is on this Who Should I Contact slide, or directly to Lingyan, lingyan.sin@noaa.gov, who can also answer the question for your specific project.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that is, the UFS is the operational system for NOAA, and so, the work that we do here at WPO largely is to transition, as you saw in the mission statement, to transition research to operations, and that's why it's a little bit of the background of the focus on the UFS versus other modeling systems.
Thank you. This question is very similar, but also slightly different, so we're going to stay on modeling systems. Do we need to propose using the UFS for understanding the interaction between fire, smoke, and other variables, or can we use other existing models for this purpose?
I'll take a first stab at that. I think you should definitely try to prioritize UFS because that is the modeling system that both competitions are looking to have projects focus on. If there is a different modeling system that can contribute to advancing the UFS, for example, if that's part of early work that you're doing to help advance the UFS, then that could be okay, but we definitely want to see all projects having some component of the UFS that they're addressing.
Great, thank you, Jordan. Here's a question that says, does a climate testbed proposal on S2S, or seasonal to subseasonal, require a NOAA partner? Given research proposals are innovative, sometimes the NOAA operational side is limited by their need by current operations and not creativity.
So for CTB proposals, you are not required to have a NOAA collaborator. However, if you're able to get a NOAA collaborator, that's certainly encouraged, but that is not a requirement. I understand that sometimes it can be difficult to identify NOAA collaborators because of the operational demands that they have in their day-to-day jobs, but I encourage you to look at the CTB or climate testbed information sheet, and you'll see at the bottom of that information sheet there are a couple points of contact that you can reach out to. So there's the CTB manager, the CPC director, EMC directors. If you're interested in finding a NOAA collaborator, I would encourage reaching out to them, and they can help potentially point you to the right person.
And I'll just add one other thing to this one is that, I would encourage you, of course, to look at the evaluation criteria, which is also in the NOFO. And, you can see there that there's a combination of both, technical merit, but also relevance to the mission. And so, that, again, like Jordan said, not required, but, there is an element of how is this relevant to the NOAA mission and to operations. And so making sure that the proposal does address that, even if a collaborator is not identified, it's an important part of it.
On the same topic of collaborators, we have a question about international collaborators. So the question reads, how about international collaborators? For instance, would you encourage an applicant to include ECMWF as a non-funded co-investigator?
Again, I don't know, Felicia, I was trying to search the NOFO here quickly to make sure I'm not giving incorrect information in terms of who can or cannot be unfunded, if we could have an unfunded international collaborator, but I saw Dorothy pop on, so possibly no.
I don't know if there's anything specific in the NOFO language either. I think encourage is probably too strong a word. So assuming that it's permitted, it's certainly not going to do any harm, but I don't know that it's, I think, again, encourage is a very strong word there.
Sorry, I was quickly looking at our frequently asked questions page because I remember there being a question about this. And so I can quickly read that off. Sorry, I'm looking at the question again to make sure I have the exact. So international collaborators, as far as encourage or discourage, I don't think there's one way or another, but they are acceptable as long as all federal funding is initially awarded to a U.S. applicant, and the international collaborator is not in conflict with any U.S. foreign policy. So I would direct you to, again, our facts page to look into further detail on that. And if you have any further questions, again, follow up with our NOFO email. So hopefully that was a little helpful.
Thank you. What a team effort. Continuing in the vein of collaboration, I have a question that reads, is a collaboration with NOAA required for obtaining a fire weather award?
Yeah, I think this is similar to the question we had earlier about NOAA collaborators. It is not required that you have a NOAA collaborator, but it's certainly encouraged. So again, I would point you to the information sheets that you can access through our website or through grants.gov. And there are points of contact that you can reach out to. Again, for the fire weather competition, those are POCs at WPO, Global Systems Laboratory, Storm Prediction Center. And then for the climate testbed competition, those points of contact are affiliated with the climate testbed, the Climate Prediction Center, and the Environmental Modeling Center. So, and always you can reach out to myself or Lingyan directly, and we can help point you to the right people to contact.
Our next question is about computing time. This question reads, does a proposal include computing time for running UFS on NOAA computing resources?
Want me to take a stab at that one? So so it's not really possible to apply for time on the NOAA resources, but what you can do is, if you have a modeling system that is cloud ready, you can budget for cloud time in your application. So that's one way to do it. Otherwise, I think you're going to need to find your own resources. I see heads nodding. I think that's typically the way things are at this point. And cloud is an option nowadays, though.
Great. Thank you, Dorothy. Here's a question about data. Do I have to use Weather Service or NOAA data in my project? Or is weather data obtained from the private sector permissible?
Yeah, I would say definitely it's permissible to focus on whatever data is going to, achieve the priorities, scientific priorities in the NOFO. I just want to quickly going back to the previous question, I would highlight also, if you are curious about like Dorothy said, cloud-ready versions of some of these codes, you can always reach out to our EPIC program, which is also within WPO, which has a mission of making our weather forecast models in NOAA openly accessible and run on multiple systems. So that information we could provide. If you just go to WPO and look for EPIC, you'll find it there. And our program manager Mao Wang will be happy to answer any questions you have if you want to go that route, or you're looking for where to find those types of codes.
All right, thank you. And thank you for clarifying on the previous question as well. I have a few more budget questions, and I'm going to read a question that I think summarizes multiple questions that we've received. So this question reads, I would like to ask further clarification on the funding limit and expected number of funded projects for the climate testbed. The approximate total funding per year is more than 3 times the maximum funding limit per project. Would it be reasonable to expect that if the approximated total funding is not reduced, 3 projects would be funded? The NOFO approximates 1 to 2 funded projects. This seems inconsistent with the funding per project and total approximate funding.
Yeah, I'll take that question. So again, these are not exact numbers in the official NOFO announcement for the expected number of funded projects. It's an estimate. So the maximum funding limit per project per year, that's the maximum amount that can be requested. In some cases, some projects might request less than that limit, which in that case, we might be able to fund more projects than listed as the expected number of funded projects in the NOFO. The approximate total award funding per year, 1.0 million is again approximate. And so we do our best to just try to give a realistic expectation of how many projects we'll select, but that is not a final number at this point. We ask you just for now to focus on making sure that your proposal stays below the maximum total funding limit per project per year, as that is a hard cutoff that we have when we process our proposals as they come in.
Thank you, Jordan. My next question is about LOI responses. So this question reads, would it be possible to provide LOI responses sooner than October 19th? So they're talking about the WPO response to the LOI. The concern is that when we receive an encouragement for a full application, there will be less than 1 month to prepare the full application.
Yeah, so the expected response date of October 19th is not necessarily when responses will go out. We at WPO will do our best to do it sooner, but there are things out of our control sometimes that might make it a little later. So I would expect October 19th, but hopefully we'll get it to you a little sooner than that, but I can't promise an exact date at this time.
I have an additional question about international collaborators. The question reads, do we need security clearance for our international collaborators?
I think that's another one that I think we might want to get back to you on and not give the incorrect answer. I'm not 100% sure, but there are a lot of policies that related to this topic. So I think we should just go back and check. We can take that down and post it after the fact. Or if you want to send us an email, if we have your email, we can just get back to you individually.
This question reads, both competitions require the use of UFS. Are we able to access existing runs for analysis, or do we need to conduct new simulations using UFS? If new simulations are necessary, is there a way NOAA can assist with HPC or computational costs?
Yeah, so I guess, again, in terms of the computational cost, unfortunately, we have not budgeted for that. We've put all the resources that we have into these grants, and so there is the opportunity within the scope of the grant to budget for cloud computing. Regarding using existing runs, it's a good question. I believe there may be model output for the global simulations of the unified forecast system. So those could be useful, for example, for the climate test bed. They're developing the new modeling system. They have prototype outputs that could be made available, but probably best to take that one offline too. We can poke around and see what is available. For the fire weather, that one's, yeah, I think we're going to need to probably connect you in with some of the modelers who are developing those modeling systems. Those are relatively newer, and probably you would need a collaborator to work with those developing systems. Am I getting that right? I'm looking at Jordan, and yeah, I think so.
Thank you, Dorothy. I am not seeing any more questions. I would like to thank all attendees who did submit a question. They are very helpful for us. And also, if you submitted a little bit of feedback with your question, we appreciate that as well. I will turn it back over to you, Tamara.
Thank you so much, Alison, for reading those questions for us. Again, they are extremely helpful. It gives us an idea or a little insight into what our attendees are thinking and the kinds of things that are on their minds that we can help to address. Again, if you have additional questions or more information that you would like to find, you can find a host of information on www.grants.gov, as well as our website, wpo.noaa.gov, under funding opportunities. Again, please take a look at those information sheets for each of the competitions, which has a wealth of information. And if you have additional specific questions, please feel free to email us at oar.wpo.nofocompetition@noaa.gov, and we will try to respond very promptly to help you get those proposals together and answer any questions you may have. At this time, I'd like to thank our WPO staff that have helped with this webinar, not only those that you see today, but many that have been behind the scenes that have helped to put together this webinar and content and reviewing the NOFO itself and making sure that we got this just right this year. So thank you all, and I will like to conclude this webinar. Shannon, I can turn it over to you.